Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 127. We're a podcast that talks about pop culture things that interest us, and sometimes there's whiskey. My name is John, and I'm joined as always by Andrea. How's it going this evening?
Good, good. Just squeezing in my busy single mom schedule. You know,
Yeah.
you know how it goes. Just so popular.
I
So
mean, that sounds like a bigger deal than I know what you're saying. You're saying single mom, you know, for the week or whatever. Single
yes,
mom.
yes, yes. For the
Yes.
week, I should say solo parenting because really,
Okay.
truly, what I do doesn't compare to actual single moms and dads out there who put in the work every day. But this week, where my husband is off hunting and I am taking care of baby plus being pregnant solo, I get a little taste of it. So mad
Mhm.
respect to everybody else who does it on the daily.
I didn't mean to diminish. I just don't want there to
No,
be
to
breaking
clarify,
news somehow, like, oh,
I'd be so cheerful. Like suddenly a single mom. Like I'm a single mom now.
yeah.
Uh
Come again? Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yes. So that's a whole nother
Mm,
thing. Tough to do. Have you managed to we'll find out soon if we've managed to squeeze anything else in other than taking care of the life of a child.
yes,
And
yes.
we'll have just a couple news stories, not much, but they're sort of big ones. We wanted to throw them in there, but only a couple because we want to save plenty of room for House of the Dragon. It's been a while.
Mhm,
It's been a hot minute for Hot D, and
mhm,
it's the finale. Time to talk to finale and the whole show, whole season, what we think of it. So we'll get spoilery about that later. But
mhm.
before that, drinks. We have any drinks for well, you're not drinking at home, unfortunately. I mean, normally that's the thing. It's like,
No,
oh, the spouse is gone. Crack open a bottle of
right?
this and
Make
whatever,
myself something fancy, I deserve
Yeah.
it. Nope, nope. I didn't even have time to, like, play this week. I was just like, "I got some water, yo."
Yep. Jug of water. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Sounds
jug
good.
of water. But there are a few things out there, both alcoholic and non, for those who wish to celebrate or find themselves alone for a night and wanna have a drink. On November 17th, it's another, like, beer wine pairing. It was
Yeah.
Zinfandel Day and then Goza Day, which I checked, I said it right or near right.
I
So,
mean, I'm just gonna go with International Goose Day. That's fine by
goose
me. Yeah.
okay, that immediately makes me think of Top Gun, like,
Okay.
International
Okay.
Goose Day. That's what
See,
I think
sure. I can't not think of Untitled Goose Game. That's what I think of.
of.
So.
Nice, nice. I love how, like, the same thing can have vastly different, like, triggering like, a
Mhm.
reflexive kind of, like, memories or impulses or associations for both of us, like happens to anybody, like, sometimes it's strong enough where, like, everybody thinks of the same thing, and sometimes you're like, "Nope, this thing."
Mhm. I do like the association game like that. Rapid fire,
Yeah. Yep.
ring of yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's fun to, like, see what people come up with and, like,
Mhm.
how, you might think of the same or different things.
Yep.
Um, so moving on though, November 18th, just a few days ago, it was National Apple Cider Day. You could choose that on its own, or you can have a little spiked cider, up to you. Um, and then another double day, November 19th, it was Macchiato Day, which, so another association. All I can think of when I hear macchiato is Sacha Baron Cohen with that ridiculous French accent in Ricky Bobby.
Mm. Okay, Tropic Thunder.
Ricky
Oh, no,
Bobby!
Talladega Nights, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you have spilled my macchiato. That's all I can hear in my brain. It's the way he
That's a
says
good
that.
one.
That's just like, yeah.
That's
So
a good
every
one.
every time I hear macchiato, it's macchiato. And then it is sorry for the terrible attempt. Um, and then it is also Beaujolais Nouveau Day, which is a type of
Mm,
wine.
okay. Well,
Again,
that was
think I
good.
said
That
that
was
near
that
good.
was done pretty well. Yeah, that sounded good.
Thank you. Thank you.
My wife is French, so I'm gonna vouch for it. Just
Ah, thanks.
yeah,
I'm getting, like, the side stamp of approval, like,
yeah,
passing through you to me.
yeah. Well, I feel a little bad because I just did this. I don't know, last week or the week before, not knowing the day was coming up just was appropriate for the weather. So I have my I mean, I guess that's not relevant, but I have my PlayStation mug and I have
Okay.
cider in it.
Nice.
Apple cider, but I did spike it again and once again with the Jamaican James Bond Blackwell rum. So,
Delicious, delicious.
yeah, good and warming.
I had
Like I
a,
said, I feel Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I have an extra surprise here, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. Okay, I was just gonna say, I had a punch, a rum-less punch, sadly, this weekend. Um,
Mm.
but it was, like, made with apple cider and a little bit of, like, orange juice and a little bit of sparkling something, and I was just like, "Oh, man." Like, I can almost it's almost the rum in here, I can almost taste it. Soon,
There's
though.
right. Um, and I'll be all the sweeter then, all the
Yes.
sweeter. Easy for me to say, but I have to say though that like I don't know if it's my old age or what, that I'm finding at times I might have something like that punch and then put rum in it and be like, the rum just direct the punch. I'm getting to the point where
Yeah.
it's not always does alcohol make a thing better.
Yes.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes there's something that's, this thing is too sweet or whatever. It could use a little kick of something else. It's like I don't
Yep.
want to just drink tomato juice, but you put a little vodka in it and a little spice. All of a sudden, my Bloody Mary is good. So it
Mhm.
can, but it's not ubiquitous and all the time.
Yep.
So um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm finding that, as I'm trying to branch out a little bit more, being pregnant, like so many of the non-alcoholic drinks, what's wrong with them, I feel, is that they're so, so sweet. And it makes you actually like long for the alcohol more
yeah,
because
right,
you need that bitterness. You need something to cut down on that just like overpowering, like saccharine taste.
yeah,
So I'm finding that as I like push myself out more and like try new things, it's like, I'm not always missing the alcohol. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm missing just like a more complex like profile to my drink
yeah,
or just
right,
like not it being so one note.
yep.
So,
That's why Ashley's little fake cocktail things are so good because they are,
mhm.
but they're exceedingly bitter. So I almost think you almost want to add a little bit of Sprite to it or something or ginger ale. It's
Sure.
just so but yeah,
I can send over one of my like early try super sweet, mocktails and we could just mix it together,
yeah,
create
yep,
finally the perfect drink.
right. Why has no one done this? Well, yeah, I have one other like drink related surprise here and stuff.
Yeah.
So as for listeners of the show, you'll recall perhaps that I opened up and tried the gin from James May. So
Yes.
James Gin of Top Gear and now blanking on its current name. It's not Top Gear anymore.
Oh,
Alan's typing it. The Grand Tour. Thank you, Alan.
yeah, yeah.
Um, on Amazon.
I tend
Anyways,
to forget that on purpose, like,
I
you know what I
know
mean? I just
it's
don't really try to
yeah,
remember it. It's yeah.
it's. Mhm.
Can't just rename
Um,
it like that.
I know. Well, the problem is that Top Gear still does exist. It's not Top Gear.
Right.
Um, but so the first gin he came out with, I got the Navy strength. It was really good. It was
Mhm.
sold to me with his witty, awesome humor, at English wit. Um, and this second one now. he has a new gin, and this one is called American Remstud. So,
Yeah.
here it is here. So it was interesting because I
Okay.
bought the first one, I was sent an email straight away when they were going to send up early sales of the next one. And
Sure.
I went on like 2 hours afterwards because I was at work and they were all sold out. So I'm like, "Oh my god, how fast is this stuff going?" But anyways, when it went up for regular sale, I managed to get some. This is actually called everywhere else American mustard, but legally they can't call it American mustard here because it's like people will think it's mustard. So
Oh my
Ramstud
god.
is an anagram
That's
for
really sad.
mustard. Yeah.
That's really sad.
So, but he's like, it sounds kind of American anyways. American Ramstud. That sounds right. So,
Ram stud.
anyways, yeah, it finally arrived, and
Uh,
to celebrate um, the finale of House of the
ooh,
Dragon, I'm gonna try it for the first time on air. Oh,
do it to it.
he's selling clothing now too. It's like for the holiday gift guide, you can get clothing, and he's like hilariously modeling it and stuff. Um,
You could
just I'm
wrap
just
a
a
bottle
fan.
of gin in a piece of clothing, and that could be your, like,
Yeah,
wrapping paper.
yeah,
Just saying, getting creative over here.
okay.
Does it have, like, so it looks a little bit different. Does it have, like, a specific p flavor profile? I'm assuming not mustard, but
Yeah,
anything else?
so on the back here says yellow mustard seed, gherkin, juniper,
Okay,
coriander seed, angelica root, dried tomato, licorice root, orange peel. I don't know what kind of pepper that is, and I don't know if I can guess how to say it even. Kebeb, kebeb
okay.
pepper. Maybe I'm totally butchering that. Rosemary, caraway seed, ginger, and bay.
Okay,
So
see, I was with you for a while, but that does, I'm not gonna lie, sound like a lot. It's
it's
a
a lot.
lot
Yeah,
of
it does sound like a
flavor
lot.
to pack in there.
Right. So will it just nothing come through? Will it just be messy?
Right, right. Let us know.
It
Dun, dun,
smells good. It
dun.
smells like a good gin.
Okay.
Ooh.
You could do some, like, ASMR
Could you
with that
hear
little.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. um that has a little like zing to it. It
Okay.
does
Little
like
kick.
have yeah, does have a lot of like kind of earthy, peppery things to it.
Okay. Lean into it, John.
Yeah. I wish I could say if I could pick up something else like specific,
Sure.
but got a really good tingle similar to the like just on your tongue. It really lights it up, and it does come away as peppery and earthy, kind of spicy. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot to it. I'm not a gin or any liquor connoisseur. If anyone's um, not wasn't convinced by that, but but yeah, I'm starting to enjoy more variations on gin, and this is
Mhm.
another winner. This one's more drinkable than the Navy Strength. That really is like will sock it to you. So
Oh, you mean, like, solo? Like, you could sip this one
yeah,
and, like, live a little, and where Navy strength, you'd be like, "I need something to cut
yeah,
this."
yep,
Sure.
mm, yep. And I like the flavor profile of this better too. So winner, James May, thumbs
Awesome.
up.
Good job again.
Yep.
Knocked it out of the park a second time.
Sometimes I worry we're not incorporating, as I've said before, enough alcohol on our Popcast on the Rocks show. So yeah, gotta
Well,
keep it going.
I can get back in there in March. I've got several
Yeah,
friends who have
that's
promised bottles of things, so
okay. Yeah,
hopefully March, April will be a good time for me.
I feel bad I haven't been able to grab a bottle of the new Surly Darkness yet. I've wanted that. I
Okay.
know Surly's not the same as they used to be at their height, but nonetheless, I still would like to try it. So,
Yeah. It's
anyways,
still
so
it's still like Minnesotan staple
I
institution,
know,
like, people think of Surly,
yeah,
like, when they think
and it's a
Minnesotan
great
beer.
venue. It's a nice place,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been busy this week for sure. Extra on your
Mhm.
plate, but did you get any fun pop culture entertainment things done?
I did have just a very, very few. I saw that you had read one of our webtoons that we've been reviewing, Maybe Meant to Be. So I did catch up on that because I had missed it. Like you mentioned, I was just kind of like ready to get a little bit back into webtoons with the spare moments I had on my hands.
Mhm.
Um, and then I did get to start. I was really excited. I didn't bring this up last podcast, but um mostly because I forgot, but also because I just, like, didn't realize the timing of it. One of my favorite Netflix originals, Dead to Me, started season 3 that dropped, I think, on the 17th, last
Okay.
Thursday. So I did get to start the 1st and 2nd episode of the final season of that, and it's, for anyone who hasn't watched it, the overall tone is very, like, darkly comedic. Um, so it was kind of a nice break, and I mean, this season, I think as the show has progressed, it's a little aired a little bit more on the comic side. Um, but so this season was a little bit of a nice break from the very heavy packed drama and tension of the finale of House of the Dragon. So,
Okay. Have you talked about this show on here before? I
Dead
don't
to Me, yeah.
remember the title. Yeah. Is it
Yeah, so it stars, Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini. Um, I don't wanna give too much away, but it's 2 women who are essentially drawn together around, the death of Christina Applegate's husband. You find this out in the first, like, literally 10 seconds of the first episode. Um, but her husband has died in a very mysterious hit and run, and so, like, the entire first season is her going through, like, the stages of, you know, grief in the wake of that death, and then also trying to solve what happened. And she meets Linda Cardellini's character at a, like, grief therapy counseling type group, and they just kinda get drawn together, so then their, uh their relationship becomes, like, the core of the show as they, like, move through a
okay?
series of life events.
Sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like I said, really, really well told, well acted. Um, it really blew up after the first season was dropped. Like, the first season, I think, is the best, but it's been a very solid show. Like,
Nice.
and I like that it's a very limited run. Like, they have, I think, a limited amount of stories and space to tell them, and I think 3 seasons is gonna be about perfect.
Okay. I'm still just flabbergasted by the amount of content out there. Like there is quality
Mhm.
stuff to be seen and found. It's just not always what's talked about because it's not like
Yeah,
universally appealing or it doesn't get the marketing budget or whatever. It's or like that would never show up on my Netflix. That
sure,
show wouldn't even be anywhere,
sure.
unless it happened to get into the top 10 charts or whatever they've put up there now. And
Yeah,
I looked at
and I
that,
think
but
I think the 2nd season did. I'm not sure if the 1st season dropped when they had, like, the top 10 going or not,
okay. Yeah, right.
because it's been a little bit between seasons. But I know the 2nd season did, but that's hard when, like, the 2nd season would be in there and you'd be like, "Well, that doesn't really mean anything to me because
Sure.
I haven't seen the 1st season." So it's like,
Sure.
it can catch your eye or you could be like, "Ugh, I've already missed, like, the 1st one."
Yeah,
Like,
you're already behind. Yeah.
yep.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then I just had to throw out there because I am solo parenting for the week. Uh, Everett's favorite TV show is also on Netflix. It's Nickelodeon's version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I am now we're now cycling through the show for the 3rd time.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is the like from 5 to 10 years ago. This one, that the one you're talking about, or is this more current? Because
Ooh,
they kind of
let's see.
reinvented and they made
Yes,
everything look weird and stuff.
there are
It's like
several
blocky.
versions of Turtles out there. Um, so
Because
let me see
I
which one
love
is
the Ninja
hers.
Turtles from, like I say, 5 or so years ago until they just reinvented it. I thought it was a really solid
Sure.
show, actually. And it was kind of like hitting a good comeback time for the Turtles. And then they went and did this whole reinvention and changed it. Like, I don't know, they had something and then they just changed it all up. And it was not appealing to me. I mean, I know it's not specifically for a 30-something-year-old person, but, nonetheless, it didn't look appealing to me, and,
Sure.
so if you're going through this
This
again and it's the other series, I'd be shocked because there's a lot of seasons.
this looks like this is either okay. So it's from 2012
Okay.
and there's only season 1 on Netflix, but
Uh,
it looks like there are several seasons and
yeah.
they might be adding. So this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Netflix also added Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Mm,
which is not
mm,
we tried that because we thought like turtles, like she likes turtles. She
mhm.
hates that. Hates that.
Okay, okay.
Um so we'll see.
Maybe that's the one. Let's see, Alan sharing it. Okay, yeah, so that's okay, your daughter has good taste, because that one's hot garbage. That, Rise of the
I mean,
Turtles, that's no good.
yes. I've literally seen like 5 minutes of it and she hated it, so we had to go back to the other
Perfect,
turtles.
perfect. Well, you
But
gotta
yeah,
get
so
those other
now
seasons.
I
There's
know,
a
I
there's
didn't
like
even know
6 or 7 seasons or something.
yeah, I didn't even know that there were, which I'm actually okay, nerd alert moment. I am actually really excited about because I came in like the first time she cycled through, like she and Chris were watching it because it was like summertime and he had like daddy daycare. So I came in like halfway through and was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool," but like I didn't really see the season. The second
Mhm.
time I like watched them and found out that
Right.
like season 1 ended on this like sweet cliffhanger that I as an adult was like, "What? Like I need to know more about this." And it was just like crushed that there were no more episodes. So now I'm like actually really excited. We're gonna go find them.
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
thinking about texting Chris right now to be like, guess what?
Pick them up.
Turtles.
Yeah. We
So
were watching through them as full-grown adults and, enjoying them. I wonder if, like, it's like distributor says Viacom. I just was wondering if they're, like, on HBO or something. Because who owns Nickelodeon? Because Nickelodeon, they're part of the whole, like, that game now, whatever All-Stars thing. It has, like,
yeah,
SpongeBob and Scooby-Doo and Batman, so that's, like, Warner Brothers and
for
stuff,
sure.
right? So, yeah, parent company Warner. Like, I wonder if they're on
Paramount Plus.
HBO Max.
Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay.
At
Do you have
least
that?
well, at least 2 seasons are on Paramount Plus.
Oh my gosh, you can be hopping
Man,
on
it seems like they're
you
just
just gotta
like
buy them. Yeah.
we're just like shopping them around to like
Yeah. Yeah, you're right,
different
'cause of
networks or
Viacom,
whatever.
CBS, and then all the different the shakeup and the everything getting sold and whatever, so, okay.
Yeah, who knows, man. But,
Alright.
yeah, so we're watching that season 1 for the 3rd time, but maybe now that I know that there are more seasons, when we end it this time, we can move on.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah,
I'm
it's
excited
very
for you.
cute. It's very cute. I'm, like, very excited that she likes something I, as an adult, can also watch without, wanting to scream or just, like,
Yeah.
shake in silent rage in a corner as I watch, like, Coco Melon for the 50,000th time.
Uh,
Not to pick on Coco Melon. It was just the first kids show that came to my head.
I don't know what that is. I'm sure I will at some point, but
Oh, you will someday.
well, fun. I'm glad you're back into the turtles. Glad your
Yes.
daughter's into turtles. That's awesome.
Yes.
I read something that I don't know. It's kind of like Ninja Turtles. They started as a comic book,
Mhm.
and so I read a comic book this last week that um, not particularly like turtles, but there are fighting monsters in it. So I guess
Sure.
that's what I'll use. I had mentioned the other week, just last week even, that I had read the supplemental to Inglorious Rex. So probably not
Yeah.
reading it in the proper order. Blood,
Yeah, I
Sweat, and
remember that.
Tears, Volume One. I have it next to me, but I also have the regular volume, the main event. If my camera would like to focus, it would be
Almost.
wonderful
We can see the
because
fun colors, though.
my yeah,
Oh, oh.
just put it close enough to my face. I'll be in focus.
Yeah, that's
So
actually pretty good.
yeah, so I got a signature on it. That's fun. Always fun to have the signature. I won't show too much in it, but it's this is so very different art than the previous book that I was talked about last week, but
Mhm.
also very good, also very detailed. You can tell it's more of that sort of, like you said, superhero book sort of look. Um,
Yeah. It's got the
mhm,
classic, like, color pop for sure,
Yep.
like
hmm
80s color pop.
Yep. So this is an interesting. So the premise is basically, I mentioned it before, I think, where it's about big fighting monsters, but you have pilots of it. So it reminds me of like a mech anime or
Mm,
something, whether it
yeah.
be a Gundam. Those are the types of things that I was always into, a Gundam or more recent stuff like Darling in the Franks or something like that.
Yeah, I remember
Piloted
saying this sounded like,
machines.
Pacific Rim, except
Yep.
you like you
hmm
said, you pilot monsters instead of robots, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
And so you
okay.
find out in this that the monsters are, let's see, I don't want to spoil anything. The monsters are made, and they're made
Mhm,
for the fighters, and
mhm,
it's the story of a guy named Alex, and he has this brother that was like the best Rex fighter in the world or whatever. And so he has like big shoes to fill. It's kind of been in his shadow or whatever. He's struck by tragedy, and yeah, we have to see how he's gonna come out of this. And he's got a girlfriend that they're gonna have some interesting conflict between the two of them.
mhm,
She's a really cool
okay.
character. Um, she's called Anatomic, and it's like her fighter name or whatever. And it's a really good book. I struggle. So it's the thing I found in comics now. It's a different world. Like when with where I am now in manga and with independent comics, when I grew
Mhm,
up, the whole idea was go to the store or whatever, you get your subscription, you show up with the comic book shop every week, and you get your monthly issue of something.
mhm,
Well, knowing more about stuff, people can't generally keep up with this pace and keep quality where it should be. And so books get spread out further. And so what we're finding now is like this, I don't know how long for sure this took to write, but it was
mhm,
a year or more, for this or whatever. So it's going to be a year or more for the next volume, barring
sure.
any delays or whatever. And I'm finding this in all kinds of things. Like for a while, I was like, well, maybe that's unrealistic that you should be getting stuff more frequent. But when you look at the level of art in this,
Mhm,
then you're like, well, yeah, but that takes a lot of time. And then the color on
right,
top of it and stuff. That's not
right.
so a person's got to decide what they're into. And I see that like webtoons, like we're reading webtoons and stuff. And I like the art of that, but it's much more simplified. So you can get a weekly hit of that and keep
Mhm,
the story progressing. And that's
mhm,
fun. but you can also go the other route and you get a more sizable book like this, but then you're going to expect to wait. And so my point of why I'm rambling with this is that it's um it's difficult for the pacing of a book to be to explain enough, to have enough happen, and then leave you wanting more but being satisfied. Like that's a
Mhm.
really challenging thing to balance, I think. And I
Mhm.
can't imagine doing that where you're going to sit down and you're going to, put kind of a year to 2 years of your life into making a book and then know that your audience is going to read that in 15 to 30 minutes. Hopefully they read it a couple times or whatever. And then they don't get another one for another year to 2 years.
Mhm.
That's a lot to ask. So you got to choose your art. So my point with this is the criticism I have of this book is that I feel like I wanted more setup time and more seeing the struggle of the characters, like the minutia of
Mm.
someone training. I wanted to like have a little more going on, a little more drama with that because this book
Mhm.
flies. So that's great. Like a lot happens, there's no boring moments or whatever. It's also not like ham-fisted exposition, which comic books
Mhm.
are really great at doing. Comic books and
Mhm.
anime, like, I'll tell you A, B, and C in a really ineloquent way. This doesn't do
Right.
that. So that stuff is all really good. But when you want, and it's like, I'm not going to get the next book now for another year. A lot did happen in this, but I felt like I sped through it. If that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like I sped through all that stuff. Like I want more
Mm.
time with the fights. Manga's really good with that. Like, that they release like a volume or chapter or
Mm.
whatever, not volume, a chapter in like Shonen Jump every week or whatever, and it's very short. It might just be panels of some fighting or whatever. So but then you keep getting your little hit.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a bigger conversation. Oh, anyways, Inglorious Rex, it was really good. I just wanted to slow down, but then my complaint would probably be, well, not enough happened in this book. So it's a catch 22, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, but it's a valid thing. I mean, if you are, like you said, going to expect people to wait for that long, you don't want them to feel that it was over too quickly and that there's, not enough to go back to and maybe pour over and ruminate and sit with. I mean, which is what some of the slower moments allow you to do. Like you don't usually go back and like I mean, you can look at a fight again and think about it, but also like the minutia like you were talking about the struggle, like the detail of how do we deal with the situation. That's sometimes like the richest source material for going back, pausing, thinking like, what is this situation like really? Like, what is the tension here? Like, what are these characters feeling? That's
Yep.
fertile soil for spending more time in that world. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, sure, like, it can feel nitpicky. On the other, like, potentially valid criticism. Obviously, I haven't read it, so I can't speak to, what I think the balance might be, but yeah.
Yep.
I think it's
Yeah.
a valid critique if that's how you felt at the end of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I only have one other criticism, and I can't really bring it up because it's spoiler. Um,
Sure.
but I have the next volume on pre-order basically. So whenever it comes
Does it
out,
have a date
I'll get it.
attached or okay. So clearly it doesn't.
There's a like a I think there's a month. I don't remember what it is. I didn't even consider what it was. So
Okay.
I could look at it, but I think the idea is if you're gonna consume this sort of format of media, you need to like get like you're expecting you're gonna get multiple of them. You know,
Mhm.
you're gonna have different series. So I'm gonna read this. Just read Kozor the other week. Read all this different stuff that keeps the content coming. But they're
Right.
different worlds and different stories and whatever. So if you're, say really, if you're really into this, like this author does a book called Starlight Cats for kids more. And it's I
Sounds
thought about getting it,
awesome.
but
I love that
yeah,
name.
Yeah, people really like it, and some, little kids or whatever, they just get really they're get to be big fans of it, but definitely as a
Sure.
little kid, like, it's different for them because I remember as a kid, I had one issue of an X-Men comic, and I read that over and over and over till it was
Mm,
shreds,
mhm,
and, like,
mhm.
that worked, it was fine, so that makes more sense, for them, but almost some of the things you can I guess you could just wait. It's kinda like a TV show. Maybe you wanna just wait for a few seasons to be out so you can really go through it and get into it,
Sure.
you know? But
Yeah, I mean, it's the eternal, like, binge or, like, do you wait? Like,
yep.
what do you like? Do you like, the opportunity for the whole season or seasons to drop so you can just, like, fly? Or do you like waiting the set amount of
Mhm.
time and just knowing, like, you're forced to wait?
Yep.
I for different things, like different like, both modes. So it's
Right.
hard to say, like, definitively, but, for something like webtoons, I am one of the people who doesn't generally tend to spend my coins on, like, buying new episodes because I like that, like, week or couple days that I have to wait.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
sometimes I can't help it. Sometimes the story is just too good or, like, the
Mhm.
the whole overarching, tune itself, I just love and I have to keep going. But for the most part, like, on a lot of them, like, I can wait. I get that itch,
Right.
like, right at the end to just, like, keep going, and then I'm like, "No, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like, I've made it this far. I can do it."
And you can keep yourself entertained with other series, right? So then
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean I don't love those series too, or at some point, like, wouldn't grab an episode here or there, but for the most part, it is kind of fun to, like, think about the next week and what could be happening.
I get in the thing where though I'm reading and then I see it, oh, next one available for free in 30 days.
Mm,
It's, like, extra long
yeah,
because if you go ahead a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that does get
So
tricky, yeah. But then, like, you can find yourself, you're like, "Okay, well, I've read this many and, like, next one's free in, like, 30 days," and then you forget. And suddenly you have, like, 3 or 4, and it's like a little mini, like, binge surprise. You're like, "Oh my god, I have, like, a couple
yeah,
now. I totally forgot." So,
yep, yep. Well, anyways, Inglorious Rex is available now. You can go ahead and pick
okay,
that up via the campaign for the second one. So if you're interested in that, that's there. I wanna also this is gonna be a little weird, my one other review for the week, I have it digitally, so I'm going to show it to you on my
sure.
iPad. Boy, yeah, they're really,
Ooh,
it's bright. So
that's fun.
Dandadan, Dandadan. So this person,
Okay, yeah.
Mikinobi Katsu, was helped, I guess, with some Chainsaw Man back in the day, or some of the manga or whatever. So um, I'm reading. I there's just one volume. So manga's doing the same thing.
Mhm.
I read this one volume. The next volume now isn't out until early next year, anyways. It's a pretty new
Okay,
series. So, but anyways, the premise of this is that there is two kids. One believes in the paranormal and aliens, and but doesn't believe in spirits. And the other one
okay.
believes in spirits, but not the paranormal and aliens.
Mhm.
Um, so they meet, and we'll just say they're both proven wrong.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
yeah, so the story involves like these kids getting some abilities and dealing with the paranormal and with spirits, and it's a lot of fun. It's
Okay.
well drawn. It's lots of action in it. It's lots of a
Mhm.
little bit of, it's definitely comedy and a little bit of horniness, but pretty reasonable. And it also deals with that's a cool shot.
Oh,
Um,
that is cool, I love that. That's
yeah,
creepy.
but they incorporate it was part of what I always love about Japanese stuff. They incorporate um, spirits and yokai and different things from real lore or mythology or whatever. So they talk about here's well, I guess I won't give that away. But anyways, they're incorporating things from real legend and myth and whatever into this,
Okay.
and then the kids are going to go exploring and have trouble with dealing with all these things. So volume one's available. I got it on like Apple iBooks, for $7, and it was a good read for sure. And I'm looking forward to volume two. So,
Awesome.
Don da Don is what that is.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you pronounced that because I definitely looked and was like thinking about noodles right about now, but I'm guessing that's not how I say
I
it.
love some of the like. I don't like the trend in manga and anime to be the longest title possible. You know,
Sure.
girl that woke up in another world and is perfect at cooking. That would be like a title
Right.
to something. It's like
Right.
what? But I do like tongue twistery or like ones that are like Dorohedoro. I like that.
Mhm.
Durarara. I like that. And then Dandadan. I like that. So
Danganronpa.
yeah,
I
there's
like
some
that.
fun things to say for sure. But yeah. Anyways, those are my mini reviews and suggestions and that sort of thing. I did other stuff this week, but we'll move on and get into some news. Just a couple things, as I mentioned. We're gonna
Yeah.
start off with more sad news. Like 2 weeks in a row now here.
Yeah.
Not
Sad
the
childhood
most
news.
fortunate. You're right. So you're talking Ninja Turtles, another
Mhm.
childhood staple for us, or at least for me, was
No, me
Power
too.
Rangers. Yeah.
Yep.
So Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and then eventually White Ranger,
Mhm.
known as Tommy Oliver, has died, and it looks like suicide. Unfortunately, he was only 49. Um, Really sad. Like, he was a real martial artist. He,
Mhm.
was a big part of Power Rangers, stuck with it for many years, went to tons of fan conventions and signed stuff for people all the time. And like, yeah, it's pretty sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I mean not to make it about his work, but it looks like he was in the middle of shooting something um as right before he passed away. So that's always
Mm,
I feel like an extra layer of sadness. There's an unfinishedness both about life and creative work that
mhm.
happens when they're in the middle of, something that they're doing or they're working on, and it's just I don't know, I feel like it's doubly sad for the people that know him and the people that were working with him. That's just gotta be so tough.
Yep.
So, I just feel really sad about this whole story, top to bottom.
Yeah, and like,
Understatement,
last
but
right, but last week we talked about Kevin Conroy, and now we have Jason David Frank, and two people that really, like, career wise, committed themselves to a thing. You know, Kevin
yeah,
Conroy was Batman. Like, he spent his life being, you know, the Dark Knight. And Jason David Frank, looked down his IMDb, and there's other things, but largely he was a
yeah,
Power Ranger. And
yeah,
I think there's something kind of cool about that in terms of, like, I have not heard bad things about him.
mhm,
Like, in general, all the people always say good things, and is dedicated to this thing. And I just think there's something cool about that. And
mhm,
I like that too, that he was actual martial artist instead of just
yeah.
always pretending or something, or having a stunt double all the time or whatever.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like Power Rangers had a really good mix of that, especially in the early days, there was, like, a real commitment to, like, let's also find, like, actual martial artists who can, I mean, maybe it's not Oscar-worthy work, but can, at least hold a story
mhm,
arc on camera for a little bit here,
mhm.
so
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Very sad. I see, like, some of the, rest in power, wishes
mm,
from, co-stars and things, and it just kinda takes on a new meaning. knowing he was a Power
Yeah.
Ranger.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a really beautiful thing for his co-stars to be saying.
Hmm. Well, condolences to the family. Um, I've heard other people say it, so it's like not me come up with it or anything like that, but just people have said, hey, for a lot of folks, the holidays get tough for people if they're going through anything. So we just, talk to someone, let somebody know if you're having trouble, that kind of
Reach
thing.
out. Yeah.
Yep. Um, all right. Unrelated, different story,
Mhm.
very different story. On to Disney and the surprising late Sunday news that Bob Chapek is gone,
Mhm.
and Bob Iger will be brought back as CEO of Disney.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Andrea?
The Bobs. I
Yeah.
don't know why. There's something very so strange about, like, Bob replacing Bob. I don't know why, like, there's some sort of, like this could be a great, like, Sideshow Bob story in my brain. Um, but, yeah, I feel like everybody else, I feel like, Bob Chapek here just absolutely blindsided by that decision. Like, there was no hint of worry from Disney. There was no, like, you know, outside reporting of, like, failing numbers and leaving audiences and what do we do? And suddenly, like, we're
I'll
I
disagree with
mean,
that.
there was a little bit, but there wasn't, like, some sort of, Disney is a sinking ship feeling that I get with this news. Do you know what I mean? Like, bringing
Well,
Bob Iger back to me says, like, major worry internally that I really didn't see, like, reflected in anything else. There was no hint of that. So I guess whoever's, like, at Disney, way to keep your lips locked and no leaks and run that ship tight, but yeah, I wasn't prepared for, like, this level of crisis mode from Disney. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like we all had inklings of, like, they weren't performing the best, but this just feels extra.
I think that the that's the illusion they want everybody to see because
Then well
we
done.
get a lot. Yeah, we
Well
get a lot of
protected.
media coverage, like, oh my god, this movie is out, and oh wow, and stuff. But Disney's stock is one of the worst performing stocks constantly now. Like they have
Mhm.
been way down, and the board isn't happy about it. They have not only is the stock doing horribly and has been, they had the theme park for the first time. One of the Universal parks passed up Disney in terms of numbers. That's just not a thing that happens. So their theme parks are not doing as well as expected. And then they're
That
losing
surprises me
their well because they raise the
because I thought
price
that
and lower the quality.
yeah, I thought that in one of their recent reports, like, the theme parks were actually one of the bright spots. I
The
remember
theme
coming out of
parks
that
in
report.
right, the theme parks are one of the things that make them money, but they're still on a downward track from where they
Sure,
have
sure,
been.
sure.
I mean, people had nicknamed Bob Chapek Bob Cheapik because it's like
Mm,
he was the park guy and he was always about cutting corners of the parks. And so they're not seeing the numbers they want there. It's lots of available bookings for that. And then they're
mm,
losing money hand over fist on the streaming service. So they're not,
yeah.
everybody expects you have to take time to build up money there to build a streaming
Mhm,
platform. But how much money are you going to dump in before you feel like you're seeing some sort of gains? Like how long
mhm,
will you go? So I've thought that Disney, not only from like my own specific viewpoint, but I mean, look, the movies. That's why it's easy think they're doing fine. Is because you see the big numbers the movies bring in,
mhm,
but they're not numbers like the other movies used to be. Movies
sure,
Endgame and earlier, and especially accounting for inflation. When you look at numbers and then you account for inflation, like Black Panther is
sure.
doing way worse than the first one. Well, people love the first one. The second one should be doing better. and it's lost like 40% of the audience that went to see the first one. So
Mhm.
they're in trouble, and I didn't obviously see the CEO change like this, on the weekend coming all of a sudden for sure.
Mhm.
That was a surprise. But yeah, it suggests things are even worse than they appeared. Uh,
Right.
Definitely worse than they say it is. And
Right.
but my biggest thing is like, what's the point? What is the point of bringing Bob Iger back? Because
Yeah.
Chapek hasn't
Yeah, I
done
was
anything. Like,
yeah, I was kind of thinking about this, as I was reading through the story, like, what's the move here? And, I mean, my separate thought from this is, I mean, if it can't get any worse, I guess, like, who cares if this announcement, like, sends Disney's stock tumbling further? But be interesting to see what happens if it does take another tumble because people are like, "Oh my god, it's so bad," you know, ditch, run, hide, or if it's like, "Oh, this is familiar and comforting that Bob Iger is back, like, maybe we're gonna take some baby recovery steps." So that'd be interesting to see kind of which way that announcement affects that. But the other thing is, and this is going to tie into my larger feelings about Disney slash Marvel, bringing Bob Iger back. I hope it's a short term patch for somebody new because we've been there, we've done that, we've done. I hope we're not trying to like recapture some earlier glory magic because we've done that. We're tired of that. We really would like something new. And I'm speaking, I think, metaphorically a little bit about, like, our issues with Marvel here. Like, there's too much formulaicness to Marvel right now, and there's not enough, like, invention. So I'm just sort of thinking, like, if we're running back to Bob Iger, are we, like, running back towards that even harder? Or is this just like I said, we just need, like, a steadying influence who knows the lay of the land right now until we find somebody who is up and coming, who can learn a little bit under Iger, and then we can, like, re-let him go.
yeah, I
That's
think
my big
it's
question.
yeah, I think that I do think it's temporary. I think that's probably
I hope so.
the right
I
call.
hope so.
It's to me, it's like that's the only thing I can come to as well. It's like, okay, we'll take people that don't really understand who did what as CEO. Understandably, most people aren't paying attention to that. All they
Mhm,
know is, hey, things seem good under Iger and things seem
mhm,
not so good under Chapek. So we'll bring back Iger. Like you say, it's comforting thing. Hopefully stop the slide of the stock. Maybe we get a
mm,
little bump while we bring in a successor, while we train up a successor or whatever, and
right,
then go
and we
on.
do it a little
Because
more seriously this
yeah,
time, clearly.
right. Because it's just, yeah, I don't know. Shocking. Big
Mhm,
news. I wonder how gullible the investors will be. Will everybody start buying now? What's going to happen in the stock here?
mhm,
Um, it's weird that I don't hear about any accountability from the board. They're pinning it all on Chapek. They pin all this stuff on Chapek that
easy fall
he
guy.
just he just like continued the momentum. That was
Mhm.
it. He just stuck to the plan, all the things. It's just what a fall guy they're using here.
Well,
Uh
and it sounds like he really is perfect because it sounds like there were complaints that were unfortunately ignored or minimized for a few years about Chapek and his management style, and his, like, budget cutting practices, both in certain situations that were needed practicalities, and in certain situations just felt, like you said, he was being Bob Chapek. So
mhm.
I mean, on the one hand, like, he's an easy fall guy. It sounds like he wasn't gonna be the right guy in the long term anyway because he alienated a lot of people. On the other hand, if you're his oversight, like, and you really just ignore all of that and put him there anyway, like, you're still not doing your job.
Yeah.
So, this time around, do your damn job and do it better. Pick a
Yeah.
better person.
I you know, I feel like I feel like the only thing in my limited knowledge that he can take any responsibility for is probably some of the down park numbers. That's what like I say, I've heard a lot of complaints with him dealing with the parks or
Yeah.
whatever. And otherwise, I don't know, does the board just look for someone that will blindly do their bidding, and when things don't work out, we get rid of you and bring in someone else? Like,
Well, that's what it sounds like Chapek was.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just
doing their bidding by, attempting to cut budgets and therefore increase profits, but it backfired. I think he cut too deeply and product suffered.
yeah, I don't know.
Because I mean,
I don't know.
honestly, like, it's I mean, and I can't tie this, of course, because I'm not in the inner workings of Disney, but, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the fact that, like, a lot of people working on Marvel shows have been like, "Listen, we've been asked to work, like, crazy hours, we don't have the budget to do things," like, there was so much that came out, around She-Hulk, around, Doctor Strange, about CGI teams and makeup teams and effects teams that were like, "We are being asked to do absolutely, batshit insane things on shoestring budgets, on working insane overtime with no compensation, like, this is just getting out of hand." So, I mean, if this is also, like, another effect of Chapek's leadership, then, you know, can't say I'm sorry to see him go if it
Yeah.
means that, like, creative teams will be, properly funded to do things like make great effects again.
Yeah, and we don't know how far does, how
Yeah,
much
I
responsibility does,
right,
you have Kevin Feige who lords over Marvel, and you have Kathleen Kennedy who lords over Star Wars.
right,
Did they
right.
not take
So I don't
any
know.
shoulder any of the blame?
Right, I don't know where, responsibility begins and
Yeah.
ends. I'm obviously, like I said, I'm not in the weeds in the thick of it at Disney, so I don't know, but, I mean, we'll see.
Yep.
I mean, this is obviously a huge shakeup, so there's bound to
Yep.
be ramifications, good and bad.
Yep. I listened to a lot of coverage today. It's a big story. I'm sure I'll hear lots of coverage between now and over the next couple weeks, and so it'd be interesting to see how it develops.
Indeed.
So, um, oh, I heard a thing. I want before right before I move on. I heard a thing that in his biography, in Bob Iger's biography, and this is not verified myself, so grain of salt, that he kind of brags about getting Star Wars from George and sort of tricking him into thinking he would be running it. Like he would have more creative control and input
Mm,
than was, then like then it
is on the
happens. The
table.
deal's about to happen, and was like, no, you're not even part of any of this. To me, it seems unbelievable because how Lucas wouldn't have lawyers properly looking at everything to make
Yeah.
sure whatever's promised is taken care of. But that's why it sounds like sort of a brag, like I managed to
Mhm.
do this. Yeah, I
Right.
don't know. I don't know. I want to look into it more, because it just sounds like it's like exposing some personal, what sounds like really shady stuff, in his own
Mhm.
biography. So
Yeah. That's quite the tea to spill. I hope he never has to, like, count on that relationship with George Lucas ever again. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, I hope
yeah,
they don't have to work together because 'cause that'd be shit. If
yeah.
you're just like,
Well, yeah.
pulled one over."
hmm So anyway, I probably shouldn't bring it up without any sort of verification. I just heard about it this weekend, and
Well, I
thought
mean,
if that's true,
if it's in his biography or his autobiography,
right,
like, it's I mean, he's putting it out there. It's not like you
right.
heard something.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah, yep.
So, but interesting.
And it means it's verifiable. So if
Right,
anyone's
or
interested,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. All right. Main event, House of the Dragon, episode 10, the season finale, the real season finale. Um,
Mhm.
HBO, they took a risk, I guess, investing a lot of money into some talent to bring a new show from the Game of Thrones, from George R. R. Martin's world back onto the screen after a
Mhm.
universally lambasted season finale to Game of Thrones. And yeah, we'll talk episode 10 specifically, and then of course overall thoughts for the season as well. Um, episode 10 starting out, I should say episode 9 ending with the quick um swearing in, oathing in of a new
The
king.
quick crowning ceremony.
Yeah, yeah, of a new and one would think illegitimate king.
Mm,
And we get to now the to see the other side, how this news spreads, of course, to Rhaenyra and Damon. So
yeah. Yeah, I was watching the post-show, summary and discussion, and, the creators were talking about how, like, 9 and 10 are really sister episodes because it's the same incident, Viserys passing away, um, but, just viewed from 2 completely different sides, and I kind of wish I would have been able to watch 9 and 10 kind of back to back. Just to kind of, like,
right.
get a feel for that, like,
Yeah.
mirroring more. It was
Mhm.
difficult to it wasn't terribly difficult to get back into, like, what happened in 9, and, that was, like, all about the side of the high towers and the greens, and, we're back now to the red and blacks, which representing, so you know how I feel. Um, but, yeah, I kind of wish I would have been
Neutral.
able to yep, neutral, good for you, good for you. I, I can talk about the show neutrally, but when it comes to how I feel, I'm pretty settled on who I think is in the right and wrong. Um, but yeah, so I wish I'd gotten to see the episodes closer together because I think that would have been really impactful.
Yeah.
And
It
it was
would
difficult to kind of like feel that tension because you
right.
obviously have 2 episodes where entire sets of characters are intentionally left out because you're not telling their story right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I agree. It definitely like the best of Game of Thrones, this series, the season kind of calls for rewatching. I think it would be
mhm,
interesting to see in a rewatch how this flows, really how the transitions between all the different actors switching out and stuff works or
mhm,
doesn't work. Um, so yeah, and what we've missed, think foreshadowing we've missed and such. So
right. Yeah,
um,
'cause, this episode does have a lot of callbacks to early parts of the season. I mean, to get right into a couple of events, there are moments that directly echo, I think, episodes 1 and 2. Um,
yes,
you know, we have Renice coming, flying directly from the Red Keep to Dragonstone to just drop bombs on Rhaenyra and Daemon and tell her, her father has passed, and Alicent, who, they were just reforging a friendship, has decided to decisively turn her back on that and crown her son king. Um, despite obviously knowing that for in Rhaenyra's mind that Viserys had chosen Rhaenyra as his heir. So there's a whole like friendship repudiation there, um, that just sends Rhaenyra into complete overdrive and unfortunately triggers an early labor and a preterm birth and a tragic loss of an infant. And we have a funeral scene there that directly mirrors exactly what Viserys encountered in episode
yep,
one. The burying of his own premature child.
yep,
So that's a big call out right there. And then there's a later confrontation at Dragonstone, Daemon and Otto and Rhaenyra flying in on Syrax that calls out for, episode 2 or 3, I think. So,
yeah, yep, on the bridge and stuff.
yes.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
no, I
covered a lot
liked
of
all that
territory
stuff.
there. Sorry to like
No,
jump
yeah,
around, but it was
all
just
those
like,
mirroring moments were great. I
yeah,
liked that a lot. Mhm.
yeah.
It's
I think it
because
was well
any of
done.
those times you can be made to think of. I think that it's important in adding to the feeling for an audience that you've really been through an experience. You've been through a lot
Mhm.
with these characters, and that's really important. And so going back to the beginning, it adds a weight. That's what
Mhm.
one thing I always thought about Lord of the Rings. You know, when you end sort of where you begin, you get to see the Shire again, type of thing, or whatever. Um, that's important because you then think of when you last saw the Shire, and you're like, holy shit, like all this stuff that has happened.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
crazy. How do you go on? Like, how is it, whatever. And so you have that sort of thing here. Everybody's been through a lot. Um, and yet we
Yeah,
end
and
up
it
with the same kind of stuff going on now.
right, right. And I think good stories don't make you feel that starting and ending in the same place is just like pointlessly circuitous. Like you
Right.
said, it's a very like, a moment to pause to be like, when was the last time we were here? Like, look at how much has happened. This is similar and yet different. And
Yep.
I think that's key. Like, you can't recreate things exactly because then your audience is left feeling like you haven't gone anywhere. But in these like echoing, mirroring moments that are just tinged slightly differently, like Rhaenyra going through this instead of Viserys, um, or even, like the revisiting of Otto versus Damon, on Dragonstone
Yep.
with Rhaenyra coming in has a very different feel as she's no longer, in her mind, and, depending on who you ask in the realm, no longer a princess, she's the queen now coming to treat on Damon's side with Otto rather than
Yeah.
to Damon with Otto. So it's very, very different situations.
Yeah. And I really like how it's sort of drilled home in this episode, including that bridge scene and later, how she has inherited her father's demeanor and temperament. Like the
Yes.
idea that, when
Yes.
we first see her and stuff, it's like, yeah, she's a kid and she's won't take any responsibilities, not living like what's thrust
Mhm.
upon her, all this stuff. But as she's grown up now, we found that like she's taken, and we're reminded of this more than once, that she's taken to ruling more in the vein of her father
Mhm.
than you might expect, and maybe she is rubbed off on her in some of the best ways.
Yeah, and I like that both. I think as a viewer, just I've talked a lot about how Patty Considine playing Viserys has been one of my favorite characters and my favorite surprises. I just hadn't known of him before, and I really think he just knocked it out of the park this season. So I love, as a fan of that actor, that Rhaenyra is now following in a kind of Viserys like path. But I also like it for her character, and I like the way that I see that come out in the show. And she's kind of bettering her character. She's taking like some important parts of Viserys, but bettering them.
Yeah.
She's very much um, measured and cautious when it comes to like this, decision about war. She's like, I have a higher duty. Like I'm not, just throwing away all of this peace and prosperity and stability because I'm angry or because I deserve to sit on the throne. Like that's not the most important thing. But then when it comes to her family and talking to Jacaerys and Lucerys, um, about getting them ready to rule, she's a little bit more present. She's like, I'm going to guide you. And she's like, my father was there for me. But I think we know as viewers, he wasn't. He wasn't. He had some moments, sure, where he was very like hands on teaching Rhaenyra. And then he had some moments where he was just like, peace, I'm out. I'm really frustrated with you. Like, I'm just going to be absent for a while. So I think she's like kind of taking some of that to the next level with her kids. And it's
Mhm.
really great to see.
Yeah. um I agree. um and they did well with the moments. That's always a tough thing, like someone else is chosen to be leader or whatever, and the difficult thing with then that power being recognized. And so how do
Mhm.
you respond? And so some of those moments were good. Like she approaches the really cool table, by the way. We should like
Yes.
invest and get that. Think about playing
Yes,
D
please.
and D on that.
Yes, please. Also, I want, like, perches for candles, like, rows of candles, so it all looks
Hmm.
like set aflame.
Yeah.
Baller.
Yep. Yep. It's like, okay, where do we stand? And then we get going, and Damon's right on it. He's ready for this. That's definitely the path he is expecting to go on. One thing I wanted to bring up, because we went by her a little bit. We talked about Renice coming in, warning them, Damon expressing frustration, like, why didn't you just torch them
Yeah.
all? And definitely, Ashley and I's thoughts, your thoughts as well, I think. Do we
Yeah.
find any issue with her decision to not? Like, are we good with her reasoning, or is there something more, or is it a plot device?
Sure. Sure. I think the answer is a little bit of both. I have here, like, I'm very frustrated with Damon in this episode. I have very two minds about, like, basically every conversation and interaction he has. Because on the one hand, like, he is, I think, upset at Renice for not just, like, torching the high towers, because we were like, "You're right there. Like, do it. It's probably actually going to save the realm a lot of chaos if you do." Um so, yeah, and then on the other hand, completely separately during this interaction, I was like, Rhaenyra is obviously, like, going into labor right now. Like, maybe be a little concerned about that. Like, maybe be like, "Oh, you okay? Wife who's having my
Right.
baby right now." Um, so yeah, separate issue. But so to back to Renice, I think there is obviously a little bit of plot device, because if she torched all the high towers, there goes the dance of the dragons. Um, and you have to make it make sense somehow. And I think they do a nice job of Rhaenyra echoing her sentiments later. Rhaenys says, like, "This war isn't mine to begin. Like, I'm not going to be the person to strike the first blow. And, like, I don't need to spill the blood." And then later, Rhaenyra is like, "I'm ready for war. Like, I'm pretty sure this is what's going to happen. But I also am not going to reach out and strike the first blow. Like, if there's a chance that we can negotiate peacefully." And I think there's a nice job of at least, like, attempting to make that reasoning flow through from character to character, so we can at least find some believability in it. Now, am
Yeah.
I totally convinced? No, but you tried. You tried to, like, follow that through
Mhm.
in another character. So,
Yeah. I was wondering, does the character have other things like, it's a little uncertain of where she wants her loyalties to lie. Like she has a hatred for Rhaenyra and for Daemon,
yeah.
thinking they took her son. So, like, can we add this into the complexity? Like, she's given them one answer, but really there's an added couple layers. Like, I don't know what side I'm actually on. Yes, I was held captive by these guys, but they didn't actually do anything to me. And the other people that are, Rhaenyra, that's sworn to be queen, she's not great and I don't love her either. So what should I do? Like, can I stay out of this sort of thing? Thinking that in the moment, anyways. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think
um,
that's one of the fun things about Renice, and one of the things I like about, the actor Eve Best. She does complexity well, and Renice has a lot of competing thoughts and feelings all of the time. I mean, she's got decades long resentment towards Viserys, and by extension Rhaenyra, for, getting passed up. She's got extra resentment for Rhaenyra for being a woman, being chosen to be heir and queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and people actually, like, went so far as to bend the knee to her. I mean, now everything's in turmoil, but at least at the time, I
right.
mean, she definitely had some feelings about that. Um, she's got feelings about, obviously, like, the high towers who are coming in, locking her away. from her family, her dragon. That wasn't great, but like you said, they really didn't do a whole lot to her. I'm sure she's got feelings about the Hightowers in the sense of like she does repeatedly say, "I'm loyal to what my husband thinks," and he declared for Rhaenyra. So like, I do feel a pull to be loyal to Rhaenyra, not the Hightowers, even if like personally I'm sort of ambivalent about anybody taking the throne who isn't me. Um, and then she's got resentment towards her husband, Corlys. You know, she tried to stay out of it a long, long time ago, and he was all like, "No, we just have to keep pushing,
Yeah.
like keep reaching. I have my ambitions." And I think she feels bitter about that because it's cost, in her mind, it's cost her children. So she's got a lot of conflicting feelings at any given moment in time. And yeah, she's just continually, I think, trying to sort out where she's gonna land, who she's gonna side with, and this episode does a really great job, I think, of helping her finally declare for Rhaenyra through seeing how much, Rhaenyra has gone through in her short life, how much pain she's
Right.
experienced and suffering and turmoil, especially um, for the crown, essentially. She's lost already. Now, we haven't gotten to it yet. But in this episode, Rhaenys sees her lose children in the plural,
Yep.
basically because of being named heir. So there's no longer, I think, a shine to it for her, and no longer a why does Rhaenyra get rewarded and she gets this thing that I didn't.
Mm,
She's just seeing like the pain
mm,
and thinking like, so you are like me,
yep.
and I can stand behind you as a strong woman.
Yep. I
So it was
agree.
a it was a it
You
was a
know, she's
long, like,
complex.
roundabout.
Yeah, she's
But
complex. She has
but yeah,
layers.
she's a lot to unpack.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it might be part 2 just not having the stomach to torch someone else's children then. To torch all these people and end them right there, again, going through the stuff you've gone through yourself, and then you're gonna just off another mother's kids right there.
Mhm.
Um, easily, rational person could not have the stomach to do that. So,
Yeah. It does, as long as we're on, Rhaenys's children, I mean, Rhaenyra in episode 8 had said, "I swear to you, I had nothing to do with Laenor's death." Kinda makes me wonder if, like, at some point, there'll be a reference, a conversation, a slipping in
hmm.
of
I
something.
mean, if you really want to mess up this new
I
alliance,
know.
because Corliss is like, you have my ships, the full weight of our everything, you want to mess that up. Say, actually, your son's alive, and we just, I mean, look, he was happy to do it
Does it
too.
mess it up?
He's like, I don't. Well, the deception, and then the Corliss would probably jump right back
What
into,
are
see, the heir. I do have an heir to,
Yeah, he
whatever.
would, but, like, I can feel like we know from this episode that, like, Rhaenys wears a lot of the persuasion pants in this family
Sure,
because, I mean, a lot of the time, Corlys is like, "The thing," and she's like, "No, don't do the thing," and then he comes back around, he's like, "Ah, you were right. Like, I should've listened to
but
you. I'm gonna do what you wanna do," and she's like, "Actually, let's, like, do this new thing that I decided," and he's like, "Cool, yeah."
yeah, we get that, but we kind of get that finally now. Like, that was part of the issue, is spent years not doing what she wanted, in the sense that, like, we're,
Yeah,
for everything we've got, we're going to be seeking, power and stature. And for what? And she's now admitting finally, when they've lost so much, you're right,
right.
that's, and but then quickly, you're right, but then she's like, but right now we can't, because we
Well,
have living
yeah.
heirs ourselves, that they won't be allowed to live. It's not going to work out that way.
Right. I mean, I think I put this in my show notes. Corliss just is too little too late. Like the whole like let's stay out of it. That would have been great when Renice proposed that like years ago. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's way too late to be out of it now. Like she is correct in that. Like Bela, she already made this betrothal for Bela and Reyna to marry Jacaerys and Lucerys. So there's no way. I mean, and obviously, as we see in this episode, that these kids are going to be just like left to their own devices and allowed to grow up and become threats. So yeah, I mean, there is a real problem here. And if it does come to war, which everybody, I think, secretly or not so secretly believes it will, nobody's just gonna like leave Driftmark alone.
Right.
Like, nobody's just gonna be like, "You wanna be like Switzerland's, be neutral?" Like, "Cool. We find that totally fine. Nobody needs your ships." Like, no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just from like
Right.
a,
Yeah. Right.
even if they didn't have skin in the game, nobody was gonna leave them alone anyway.
Right.
So,
Mhm. Yeah. Do you so we see Rhaenyra trying to firstly the little bit of a play at her heart. Do you remember Alicent? You know, you
mm,
guys used to be
mm,
friends. And then
mm.
that kind of, you know, she's like, okay, you
Otto.
know, I'll have have my
Otto
answer
can
come morning.
just no, Otto can just fuck all the way off. I've said it so many times this season, but he really, really can. I'm sorry. That was just some manipulative BS.
But
And if
does it
Allison if I mean, I don't even know that that page came from Alicent or
right.
if Otto freaking stole it and just, like, decided to make a play or if Alicent did give it to him, but either way, you knew he was gonna use it in a very manipulative fashion. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, either way, it didn't seem sincere, and I was just like, "Ugh, gag."
Does it contribute to her staying her hand? Because she's in there, you know, and that's an interesting conversation here is so we have this element of, you know, you have this relationship with Allison, this emotional thing like that. But then also looking at the greater picture of what's my responsibility to the realm. And obviously, obviously Damon is not for it because he's, you know, he feels like he was shut out a long time ago for
Yeah,
things that he was deserved of. And
yeah,
if Rhaenyra is possibly seen through the fog to notice that maybe the more important things are her children and all of, you know, High Rock, not, uh, you know, burning in the capital, you know, everywhere in
yeah,
Westeros, just
yeah.
burning to the ground. That's valuable, but is it realistic as well? Like, I mean, do you take the offer? Is the offer reasonable? Like, what's
No,
the why not?
no,
Why not?
it's not reasonable.
Peace.
It
Peace.
it
Everybody gets lands and titles, and we're all, you know, you guys get
they've
Dragonstone or whatever. You get all the
no,
things, you know?
they've already shown sneaky treachery, so there's no way to say that they wouldn't, like, plant them up in their respective castles and then be like, "Whoopsie, an accident," or, "Oh, Jacaerys as cupbearer was fighting in tourney," or, some sort of other act. There's no way, I mean, I would trust their word at all. They pulled all of this off without even giving Rhaenyra the simple courtesy of telling her her father died. So, no, there's no way I would trust the word of a high tower at this point to just be like, "Let me offer your sons, like, super insulting, sad positions as cupbearers." That's not even, like, a real thing. You know what I mean? There's no real responsibility there. There's no, like, weight and meaning to it. It forever places you below, it infantilizes you because it's a job usually done by a younger person. So
Mhm.
it's an attempt to put them in a very, you know,
Diminutive
it's an
position, yeah.
yes, yes, diminutive position. Thank you. That's the word I was really searching for actually. So yeah, I think this offer is total bullshit. And it's echoed and made seem all the more hollow by Otto's yelling at Rhaenyra like, "Aegon has the crown," which he doesn't. he has another crown. He has the sword, he has the scepter, he has all the
Yeah.
symbols of legitimacy, and you could just look at him and go like, "So?"
It's a good
Like,
point
I could
in
I
front of
could
an
but
audience, yeah.
I could put on a cape tomorrow. Would that make me, like a superhero? Would putting on oh, too soon, too soon. I can't do it.
You
I
say
was
the
about to
queen,
say
yeah,
like I was. It's so soon. But it is an enduring symbol of the English monarchy. So maybe I'm not tying it to the queen. But were I to put on, you know, the velvet cape, hold the scepter, the globe, or the orb, and be crowned, does that make me like legitimately anything? Or does it mean that I'm just wearing the symbols of this office? Like, symbols don't
yeah.
mean anything without like believing in the person and believing in their ability behind it. I mean, symbols are just symbols.
Right,
Anybody can
but
copy them. I mean, think about how many, like, movie props and knockoffs are made of those things, like, we imbue symbols with power, sure, but at the end of the day, like, if you don't believe in the person behind it, it doesn't mean that much. And
it does matter.
all of Otto's bluster to me was just, like, somebody basically trying to, like, shout at the world and, like, tilt at windmills and convince people like, "I matter. This matters." The more you have to convince people, the less power you have.
I mean, it was wise to act so quickly and to have all these symbols presented to someone that is reasonably to the public an heir,
Mhm.
has a claim to the throne, has the blood, looks certainly more the part than, not than Rhaenyra, but than her kids, like seeing the
And
wine or
Jacaerys, yeah,
whatever.
I mean, we all know
Yeah,
at this point they're, you know, sons of House Strong, and they do not have
yeah,
Targaryen features, it's okay.
right. So, I mean, to the general public, I don't know. Be interesting. What would happen? What would happen if um Harry was, like Charles was out of country and
Oh,
Harry,
sorry,
uh
you're going to
yeah,
the
the
actual English
English
monarchy.
royalty, yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like I was like,
Who's
"Who am
named
I
Harry.
missing?" Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, "We have another, like, Jason situation. We have all these, like, cool ass names,
Yeah, and
Rhaenyra,
then
Daemon
Jason
Viserys, and
Lannister,
then
yeah.
Jason and Harry over here." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
man." Okay, no,
Mhm.
sorry.
I mean, what would happen
Present
if
day
all of a
monarchy.
sudden they, like, try to, give Harry all the objects and throw him in front of the castle there, and, "Here's your new king." And then Charles shows back up, "Hey, that was mine. I'm
Hey,
not dead yet." Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it is a very similar situation, to be sure. Like,
mhm,
that's a good as you're gonna get real world analogy. Um,
mhm.
as far as I'm aware, Philip and Elizabeth did not have any illegitimate or not illegitimate, but, I mean, Elizabeth obviously
Bastards.
didn't well, she didn't, like, remarry and have, like, a kind of half sibling,
Mm,
separate family, a secondary family. I apologize, I don't really know how to put that the best way, because, Rhaenyra and Aegon are obviously half siblings.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's certainly ways that I think people can be convinced for certain, but I mean, if say Charles wasn't Harry's father, if some other man were, and he were just running around yelling like, "Harry has all the symbols, it means he's king." Like, it just when you feel the need to, like, shout it like that at everybody, it just, I feel like, takes away some essence of respect and power because in my view, real leaders don't need to convince you with their words. They need to convince you with their bearing and their actions. And
Real
that's what leaders in my mind would do. Not just have people like run around being like, "I am the king. I'm the king because I
real
dressed with the thing and I'm the king." You
Real
know?
leaders, yes, but real rulers, not necessarily. Rulers are instated in a way, like when we talk about a monarchy or whatever, whereas
Mhm.
leaders kind of have to have the respect and, are granted the power that that the populace or their followers give them.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
population doesn't really give the queen or anyone their power. The royal family
well,
does. I mean,
but see, this is where it's becoming hard to carry on the analogy because I mean, the actual royal family in England is symbolic, and here we're
right.
talking, about a show that
Literal. Yeah.
there is actual leading to do.
Yeah.
You are actually the leader and have all the weight of actual political decision. So, yes and no.
Mhm.
That's
What do you
that's why
so
I'm struggling with the analogy there.
Yeah, I know it's an aside thing, but if you feel like answering and you have an opinion on it, what do you think of like the symbolic monarchy? How do you feel like that is in terms of you know,
Mhm.
a system for them? Like what do is it obviously we're outsiders, so we don't have the same sort of look
Sure,
at it from
sure. Yeah, I think it's taken on a bit of a different light to me in um the wake of the Queen's death because even though it was, it was and is symbolic, there's something about, you know, Elizabeth having been through so many historical events and bearing witness and kind of, people did, especially like in the beginning when it was feeling less symbolic and less like, you know of a touristy kind of draw or like, entertainment tonight or like who's wearing what,
right.
when there was more investiture in her being like kind of a cultural leader. There was a weight to that position, and there was we need somebody to look to, and that's not always just going to be our prime minister. We need someone to help us with how we feel about things, not only the decisions we have to make as a nation, through our voting or through our voices to our elected leaders on like laws and policies and things like that. There was a, how do we need to feel about this, and how do we have the space to react? And I think she was someone, people could identify with, who in her earlier years, they felt a sense of empathy with her as she, was so young and just, kind of thrust in the spotlight, and there was like a real connection to a woman trying to find her way there. And then as she grew older, there was a comfort and a familiarity and she's been through so many ups and downs and she's still here, and so is the monarchy, that it's a very comforting thing to have and to look to. Um Now with that ending, I think there's kind of a reevaluation, and there's less, it's not Charles's fault necessarily. I think it was maybe going to happen with anybody regardless of who it was. Um, but yeah, there is a reconsideration, I think, in what does the monarchy mean, and do we really need it? Do we need it as much as we used to? Can it play maybe a diminished role now in our government? So
Sure.
again,
Okay.
long-winded, but
Yeah. No, sorry for this side, everyone that's not interested, but I just what I was curious what your thoughts were there. So,
yeah.
um, and as we've talked before, how this show does seem to bear a number of resemblances to actual English history. Kind of
hmm
fun.
Yeah, I mean it does actually. I was reading the story it's based on in English history, and I know I had
Oh,
likened it a little bit to one of Henry VIII's wives. It was like I was talking about Jane Seymour, his wife there, but it's actually like based on a different part of an earlier part of the War of the Roses. Um so yeah, so it is inextricably tied with English history. George R. R. Martin's made that very clear. So,
cool. Okay, so we we've decided now. All right, we're gonna um we're gonna wait. We're not making the first move, and so the kids
Mhm.
are gonna go be little envoys here to neighboring
Yeah.
houses, and
I love that
that doesn't
Jacaerys
go
came
so
up with
well.
this.
Oh yeah,
I love that Jacaerys is the one who was like, you shouldn't just, like, send messages, you should send us." It's, like, a really politically smart move. I mean,
yeah,
you're obviously leading to the fact that it doesn't end well, which it doesn't, but in the moment, it does seem like a smart decision to make to kind of, like, reinforce to people, like, "I care about you, I'm reaching out, look, I'm sending my sons who are my heirs," you know?
right.
Jacaerys has a point, dragons are definitely more effective than ravens,
But do you
so,
want to
yeah.
start with a threat? I don't know. It will be viewed
Well,
as a
there
threat.
but would it? I mean, it is kind of a threat, but it's like a I'm giving you the courtesy and respect of sending my heir who can like control his
Yeah,
dragon. Like he's not going to like start a war with one dragon. And I think Jacaerys is right. The dragons are just like impressive reminders of like might
yeah,
and power and strength.
yep.
So, and it's just kind of like a reminder, like, you wanna be on this side, like, we
Hmm.
got we got. So, yeah.
Doesn't work out so well for Lucerys.
No, no. Oh
Because
god, and I
his
knew it was coming.
in a pissing contest, he loses in every way, in like competency and confidence, in size and physical prowess, and then in dragons.
Yeah.
Um, so what are you gonna do? Like
I
you say,
mean,
we kind of
okay,
knew
I'm gonna
this was coming.
yeah, I did know it was the second I saw Vhagar, I was like, "Well, that's over." Um, but I do wanna just point out for Lucerys, for Luke, um, he does have, I think, one thing going for him, and that he is smart. I mean, he obviously knows that his dragon Arax is not going to beat Vhagar. Vhagar is a behemoth. But so then he's like, "Cool, maneuverability, that's what I've got. That's what I'll
Mhm.
use." So,
Right.
I mean, point to Lucerys there, you had a really great idea. You just did the really classic dumb move of thinking, I escaped. I'm going to take a breather in this wide effing open space.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
sweetie bear. Like, ugh.
Yep. He should have gone down into the trenches there, into the ravine or whatever, and
Yeah,
stayed there.
just
Just
wait it out,
hang
man.
out there for a while. Yep. He'll go away.
I am convinced that Aemon didn't intend to kill him at least at the
Right.
outset. I think
I don't think
his
so. Yeah.
his shock and his genuine attempt to hold Vagar back.
Yep.
We see at the end when Vagar is like bursting out of the clouds and he's like, Vagar, no, no, no.
Mhm.
Um, I think there is some genuine distress there and some, I was really trying to kind of pay him back and
Yeah.
you know, get
Terrorize him.
even, terrorize him, bully him the way I was bullied, feel some sense of satisfaction that, he stole my eye and wasn't punished. There's definitely some retribution there, but death I do not think was on the table.
Yep. No, I agree. And
Doesn't mean he wasn't an
technically,
asshole, but he wasn't
right.
plotting murder.
Right. Technically, Lucerys had struck the first blow again unintentionally, but this is what you're gonna get. You can't.
Oh,
He
oh,
he
yeah.
threw some, blasted some fire at the side of him, to of
Well,
course no effect.
that was the funny part because he also said no,
Yeah, obey
Arax.
me. Yeah, he didn't
Obey,
mean to do
yeah,
it.
and yeah, exactly. So I mean, both of their dragons sort of took a little liberty
Yeah.
here and were kind of like, pardon the pun, fired up on their own. And so that
Ah,
sort of makes me wonder, like, fire. It sort of makes me wonder, about how this whole like, you know, let's use Dragon's plan is gonna go. I mean, Damon
Yeah.
spends so much of the episode being gung ho on like, we have the dragons, we have the dragons, we have the dragons. We need to use them. Here's all the things that we have. It's like
Mhm.
this is kind of highlighting some of the unpredictability of sending dragons into war.
Well, you just know, yeah, when you're playing with fire, it, you're gonna have accidents. You're gonna have mistakes. You're gonna have more. It's like having tanks or dropping bombs. From a fighter jet.
Mhm,
You are you get casualties of war. You have issues with collateral damage, and the dragons will add that. They'll add a level of
mhm,
uncontrollability and a level of collateral damage that you wouldn't have otherwise. And yeah,
mhm.
I think it's at the same time. I mean, for the audience, it's interesting, and for what Aegon, right? Aegon, or Aemond. I always mix them up. Which one's the guy, the eye
So this
patch?
is Amond.
Okay.
This is Amond. Yep.
Yeah, Aemond is like I it'll matter for his character, but otherwise
Mhm.
for no one else is going to believe this was accidental. No one's
No,
going to believe,
absolutely not.
"Oh, he struck first." No one's going to believe that. No one's going to believe I couldn't control my dragon and like it's going to be inconsequential other than to his
Right.
conscience and us as a viewer knowing this. So,
Right, yeah, no, I mean, I think telling the truth, only, um, kind of diminishes him or makes things worse for him in other ways. Like you said, other than the fact that he would get the ability to express genuine remorse, unfortunately, no one's really gonna believe him.
right.
Um,
Mhm.
and that's both a product of the situation and I think how he's acted as a person. Nobody's really bought into like he's oh so soft and forgiving. Um, that's just not what he's displayed. But it's to his detriment in, you know, like so you couldn't control your dragon, so you're not like really a true dragon rider, or maybe you're not a
Right.
good one. Like all the years that you spent without having a dragon, maybe that really meant something. Maybe you weren't destined to have a dragon, and this was just some sort of like horrible accident that Vagar accepted you. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
only diminishes like
Yep.
him as a Targaryen and him as a dragon rider. And then I think, going back on like I didn't mean to sort of makes him very like wishy-washy. Like,
Mhm.
so you like killed somebody but you didn't mean it. Like, shouldn't you just like own up to it and mean it? Just like take
Right.
ownership. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't get to see what he decides this season, but he'll have, the time that he goes back to wherever he goes to, whether it's the Red Keep, whether he tries to, however unlikely, go to Dragonstone and try to, approach Rhaenyra somehow. Whatever he does and whoever he sees first, like he's got, a short amount of time to figure out how he's gonna report the situation.
Yep. Yep. Well, yes, that does bring us to the end of the season. I think if
Mm.
we were like Rhaenyra's waiting for someone else to make the first strike. This is definitely going to be seen as that, and
Yep.
war is for sure
Her
on now.
Yeah, her
So,
her slow turn face definitely said like, "Welp, it's on."
yep, yep. I didn't know. I was half expecting a tortured scream, but this was good
Yeah.
too. Like you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
This is it. So,
Yeah, I think this was a great opposite moment to play from the horrendous, stillborn birth trauma that we experienced, which was a very different way to lose one of her children early in the episode. That was, I mean, to watch Emma Darcy's face was just agonizing through all of that. And that was the moment for, tortured screams. And that was the moment for, you know, just like the heartbreaking wail of look at what all this has done. It's cost me my baby. And this moment was a way to see a grief of a different kind play out for her, you know? Um, so I don't think it had any less impact or any less meaning for her or for her decision not to scream. I think in a way this was just as impactful and just as horrendous for her to live through. And she showed it. She, being Emma Darcy, showed us Rhaenyra's pain completely convincingly and heartbreakingly in a very different way. So
Yep.
I've been one of Emma Darcy's biggest skeptics, but I think these moments have really showcased her talent.
Yeah.
Like, this episode was a real highlight for her.
Yep. For sure. So overall, in summation here, we have now a completed season of House of the Dragon.
Mhm.
Was it a successful season? Does it live up to Game of Thrones?
Ooh. Um, I definitely grant it success. Like, I think it was a very, very solid first season. I would give it somewhere in the solid B range, with higher or lower per episode, I think averaging out to just like a very respectable B. Um, I think there were terrific performances. I think there were really interesting plot lines. And just like they spent great money on dragons, and they gave us enough dragons. I mean, you always want
Yeah.
to see more just because they're so gorgeous. But I think it was the right amount for the first episode to, like, tease and tantalize, like, this is what we're leading up to, and obviously, like, future seasons are gonna be all out war involving
Right.
dragons, so we're gonna get a lot more of that. And I think it was wise maybe not to commit all that budget to something they didn't know was gonna, be well received or not.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they took a gamble with House of the Dragon, and there were stumbles, but overall a solid enough storyline and solid portrayals that I think people are going to be excited about future seasons. I think this is something that people are going to be coming back to. Um, has it lived up to Game of Thrones at its height? I don't think so. There's something about the storytelling of Game of Thrones. There's something about the novelty of it, and just like the absolute perfect storm of cultural sensation that it hit, that I don't know that House of the Dragon will ever get to, but it's done a commendable job standing on its own while also standing on the shoulders of its forebear.
Right. Yeah.
So it's built, not taken away, and good job.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, after a
What do you
first
think?
watch, yeah, a first watch
Where
through, I
where
think a
would you
B
grade
plus
it?
is pretty reasonable.
Sure.
Um, e I'm tempted to go higher because I think that there hasn't been anything on television or on the movie screen that I've seen that has done fantasy, medieval fantasy this well since mid seasons of Game of Thrones
Mhm.
that I can think of. Maybe there's something else. Northman, different sort of setting, but I suppose, but just is
You're missing a big, there's a big circle gap here. Rings of Power.
Oh, Andrea. Oh, you jokester. Um,
I mean, they are in direct competition. They are in the
yes.
fantasy realm. I speaking as someone who's watched half of the episodes, I have not finished the season, but I mean, it is out there.
Yeah, it is out there. That is true. It does exist. Um,
It has been released into
yes.
public consciousness.
Yeah, there's just a competent vision and eye behind this show. And I think that's not super common right now. There's budget to be had, and it seems like it's well spent. This was a challenging season to make because of the recasts and the time jumps and all that stuff. and they managed to do that quite well. Definitely going through this season, I was fearful at points that things were really going to tank or they're not going to be able to, pay things off. But I ended up getting invested in many of the characters. None of
Mhm.
them are bland. Um, and I didn't see where it was going a lot of the times. So I think that it's a winning formula, and it reminds me of how good television entertainment with a large budget can be. And I'm very excited for there to be more. And I'm okay with if there's a year or 2 year wait or whatever it is,
Mhm.
perfectly fine. Give me time if I want to rewatch this again in a year, and you
Mhm.
know, kind of keep that
Give you
going.
time to miss it.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much I did miss this type of show and this world and everything. Like when those, even when the credits, hit and the theme song, it's like that. Those were good years, and there's a lot to live up to, and in a lot of
Mhm.
ways they did, I think. So
Yeah.
I was quite satisfied with the season, and ready for more. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only hope, obviously we've all experienced the detriment that extra time had on the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, but I mean, it feels like they really have learned a lot of lessons since those days, and I'm trying not to feel too much trepidation about the time between seasons, and really just putting my trust into, we're making this because or we're taking this time because we're making, a next great season, not because we're, about to go in and F it all up.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh, it's hard, we've all,
Mhm.
again, pardon the fire puns, been burned before, but
Mhm. Mhm.
um, I think having them come out with such a strong first season does speak volumes to, their recommitment to great storytelling in this world, in this universe. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Nice.
Overall, great job, HBO.
Yeah. All right. That's been Popcast on the Rocks, episode 127. We're here generally weekly, so please be sure to subscribe on Twitch, YouTube, your podcast directory of choice, wherever you are. If you're on a podcast directory, please leave a review. It'd be much appreciated. Killing the Flower. They wrote our theme song. You should give them a look on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Apple Music, and all over the place. So we much appreciate that. And otherwise, yeah, we'll be back again next week. Andrea, thanks once again for joining me.
Of course, as always, cheers, everybody.